Let's get straight to tonight's Out in the Open panel. Keith Boykin, who was a Clinton White House aide and now hosts BET show, My Two Cents. Conservative commentator, constitutional lawyer Mark Smith, and Air America radio host Rachel Maddow. Glad to have all you back with us tonight. Now, Mark, I know you think these coffee houses are a joke, but you're not going to stand here and tell me tonight that you believe these vets who've come home actually want America to lose this war, are you?
Look, they certainly have a right to express their views.
But
to me,
answer the question.
Yes, anybody who is basically anti-war to me is essentially aiding and abetting our enemies. We need to be unified in a time of war, and that is what we are facing. We are facing a serious threat from Islamic fascists. And to the extent that there are groups out there encouraging soldiers and encouraging the country to be dissuaded from this noble effort, to me, absolutely,
These are the men and women that have served there. I want you all to take a look at some numbers.
We have 3.5 million people in the armed service. You can always find a few bad apples in anything.
But
and that's what we're talking about.
Before you jump in here, let's put up on the screen a survey of active duty military members. This was done back in 2004. 83% of troops believed at that time it was likely the U.S. would succeed in Iraq. At the end of 2006, only 50% feel that way. If only half of our troops feel that the U.S. can succeed in Iraq.
I think
this can't. It's not a joke.
You don't win wars or fight wars with public policies and with respect to polling. Polls don't win wars. Strong leadership wins wars.
Well, strong leadership is debatable because these troops are courageous. Not only courageous, they're patriotic. They reflect not only the sentiment of the American people, which are strongly against this war, but also the sentiments of the troops themselves. 72% of the troops, according to a poll last year, want to come home. They want to be withdrawn from Iraq. So I think if anything is unpatriotic, it's to send these troops into harm's way without an exit strategy or a clear mission, and to mistreat them when they come home. That's the real tragedy.
Rachel?
My issue is that the idea that if you don't support the war in Iraq, you don't believe there's a threat from Islamic fascism, or you don't believe that we were actually caused real harm on 9/11. I believe there's a real threat from Islamist extremism around the world. I believe that we're really targeted by terrorists. And I think that the thing that is hampering us the most in fighting that fight is being bogged down in Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11, had no support to terrorists. And we've created a problem there that's distracted us from what we ought to be doing. I don't want to be told that I'm rooting against America by thinking we chose the wrong strategy. I get to argue in this too.
You talk about rooting against America.
The war in Iraq.
Let me put up screen something else. I want you to analyze. It's an online letter with some 1,700 active duty members who've signed on to show their support for withdrawal from Iraq. It reads in part, as a patriotic American proud to serve the nation in uniform, I respectfully urge my political leaders in Congress to support the prompt withdrawal of all American military forces and bases from Iraq. Staying in Iraq will not work and is not worth the price. It is time for U.S. troops to come home.
History's proven that statement false. Since 9/11, there has not been a single terrorist attack on American soil. Why? Because we have moved the war on terror from our backyards in New York and Chicago, and we've moved it to the Middle East, which is exactly what
that's to do with 9/11.
Iraq aided and abetted and supported Islamic fascists. And the war in terror has moved to the Middle East. We want to fight the war in their neighborhoods, in their backyards, not here in the States. That's what has worked.
And you know this as well as I do. The 4 years before the 9/11, there was no terrorist attack in the U.S. So just because you go 4 years without a terrorist attack doesn't mean you're winning in the war. This war has gone on longer than any other war in recent history except for Vietnam. It's gone on longer than the Civil War, longer than World War I or World War II. They know it's unwinnable. That's why the soldiers are opposed to this war, because we cannot win.
And the war is going to keep on going as long as Islamic fascists want to kill us. That's why we need to be in Iraq.
And we got to move on. Save that thought, please. Our panel again, Keith Boykin, Rachel Maddow, Mark Smith. Is this a totally racist move on the lawmakers' part? Not the apology part, but to set aside an entire month to honor the Confederate legacy.
It's completely unnecessary. It's ridiculous. Of course, it has some racist overtones to it. I mean, slavery and Confederacy go hand in hand. What the Confederacy represents is slavery. It represents people who were traitors against the United States government, who took up arms against our own country. How dare we honor that in a Heritage Month and forget the ugly history of slavery and segregation and the South of before the Civil War that it represents? We don't want to go backwards.
You're laughing.
Yeah,
How can you laugh about that?
Look, here's the thing. I think every day should be American History Day. But now that we have this trend of making every day or every month some special event for some marginal group or discrete group or discrete
It's
group,
not a marginal
the
group.
point
These are
is
state
whether
lawmakers
the
in
point
Georgia.
is now that we have this trend of making every day and every month special, then why not have Confederate History Day as well or History Month as well? Because think about it this way.
Celebrate the shame of slavery?
We have Holocaust Day right now, and that you don't celebrate the Holocaust is to learn about the events. And bear in mind that you can't just use slavery to disqualify such an event, because otherwise you couldn't study Greek history, you couldn't study Roman history, you couldn't study American history, because every civilization and every culture has had slavery going back to the beginning of time. Slavery cannot disqualify learning about a point in history.
Just a minute ago, you were criticizing U.S. soldiers you called them basically traitors because they were speaking out using their constitutional rights. And now you want to defend people who were traitors against the United States government? You want to defend the right to have a holiday to celebrate people who were traitors, who took up arms against this country to defend slavery? You want to defend the indefensible?
First of all, I don't think they're talking about a holiday. They're talking about a month in which you learn about things. And remember, it's nothing wrong with learning about things that are bad. To learn about slavery, to learn about these things, to me, education is appropriate and good. Even if you learn about things that are undesirable, so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Mark, if this were Civil War History Month that they were proposing, you would be right. This is Confederate Heritage Month. I mean, it's the equivalent of saying, let's have lynching Pride weekend. Oh, come on, I mean, this is not about remembering the good and bad about the Confederacy. This is about celebrating our Confederate heritage. This is not the same thing as memorializing the Holocaust, and you know it. And to say that it doesn't have racist overtones is to be deliberately blind to what they're trying to do. Come on, you're smarter than that.
Look, the bottom line is this is about a month in which you learn about the heritage of the Confederacy. Now, my family's from the North, so this doesn't mean a lot to me. But you cannot say that just because an institution or a cultural or a civilization had slavery means we can't learn about it, because all places all over the world had slavery, and we should still learn about them as well.
Quickly, on to what the head of the NAACP in Georgia has to say about this proposed bill. Quote, although the supporters of the Confederate History Bill feel responsible to honor the past deeds of their ancestors, they resist all notions that they have any responsibility to apologize to their ancestors' victims. This reeks of hypocrisy. Isn't it hypocritical?
Yeah, exactly.
Who are we going to apologize to? Who's alive? What slave is alive to apologize to? We didn't own slaves. Why are we apologizing?
Mark,
the problem is we should be focused on today and the future.
We wouldn't have the economy or even the country that we have today were it not for the slave economy. We are all still affected by the economic system set up by slavery. And you can't say I'm opting out. I don't have any responsibility.
We already apologized. We already apologized. It was because the 600,000 Americans that gave their lives to free the slaves in the Civil War. That, to me, is enough of an apology. From this day forward, we should worry about the future.
You know,
and the present, not 150 years in the past. We can always find
reasons. Who fought to keep slavery?
You're denying history.
You get the quick final
You're denying history. We don't really need an apology. We need to deal with the vestiges of slavery that still exist for black people in this country. That's what we need to do first.
And apologizing for slavery will not help today or the future.
You are so wrong.
You need to focus on the future and not the past.
And you think in some way a simple apology is going to change the economic disparity?
No, an apology is not enough. An apology is not enough.
Reparations is what you need to be on.
A lot more to talk about tonight, and if you want to join the